Welcome to But Enough About Me, a podcast about other people. My name is Tyler Andrews. I'm a Nashville-based photographer, husband, and father. I'm trying to collect the stories of everyone around me, whether we're best friends or total strangers. I want to know what made you the person you are today. Welcome back to the show, guys. It has been another monumentally fast 2 weeks. I spent last week in Pittsburgh and saw a bunch of family when I came back to Nashville, and I'm just realizing how difficult it's going to be to get these out over the next month and a half. So please bear with me. I aim to have everything maintained on schedule, but holidays. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna happen. Don't worry about it. Regardless, we got a story today, and it's a good one. I met this man back in, I think, 2007. I could find an exact date because I have photographs of the first time I met him. I was on an assignment documenting a gentleman who was opening a new practice, a new kind of medical practice in the area. And it was for a magazine, and it was a really, really unique and cool space, and it made me really interested in the guy. Then fast forward a couple years later, and I run into him again at our church. And it was weird. I did not expect it. It took both of us a minute to realize why it is we knew each other. As time went on, I got to know him better and better. We've spent a lot of time hanging out and talking, and I drink whiskey with my doctor. He has gone through a lot in the years that I have known him, but what has been left behind is an unbelievably compassionate, kind, loving person that is the epitome of what I want in a doctor. To say I trust this man with my life is, well, it's literal. I do trust this man with my life. He's my doctor. And so I love him, and I am so proud to know him, and I'm so honored that he was willing to share his story and share it as honestly as he did. Guys, it is my very great pleasure to introduce you to my very good friend, Dr. Charles Marable. All right. Dr. Marable, thank you so much for doing this.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, I know,
Tyler.
right?
Be with you, my friend.
It feels so formal when we start out. You can relax. It's not that formal. I just want to know your story.
I appreciate that.
When were you born?
I was born in October of 1959.
Where?
I was born in a town in Arkansas. I believe it's the oldest town in Arkansas, Batesville, Arkansas.
Is that on 40?
No, it's north central Arkansas. It's
Okay.
North of Little Rock. It's not on the beaten path.
Well, and you say that. My experience of Arkansas is that there's not much on the beaten path.
That you care to see. No.
Yeah, that the beaten path itself isn't really all that beaten.
And there's wonderful places, just
Sure.
like here in Tennessee. It's just a great place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Tell me about your folks.
Well, my dad is a Tennessean, actually. He was from Middle Tennessee, just a little farther west of us. And my mother is was from Virginia, and grew up on a dairy farm there with her brothers. And they met at the University of Tennessee, where my dad was going to school, and my mother was in graduate school, and that's where they met and got married. And she was a PE teacher.
Okay.
My dad was a pharmaceutical sales rep for one of the big companies at the time, and they signed him up to go to Arkansas, to this little town called Batesville. So we moved there, and I was born a little more than a year later, or a year or so later, I guess, and that's where all that started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I didn't realize. I mean, I guess it makes sense that they had pharmaceutical reps in the 50s, and but I always assumed that that was a relatively new thing, but that's not.
No, it's not. I mean, it's changed a lot. I mean, it's a lot different now than it was. They have a lot of specialists now and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
these guys just represented many different medications and things, and travel around talking to the doctors and hospitals and stuff. And my dad was really good at it. I mean, he was the top salesman in the country 3 times. I mean,
Wow.
he was really good at it. Which I didn't get a lot of that. I'm not good. I don't sell stuff. I can't do that. He was good at it. He had a gift of gab and
Yeah.
and was very personable and had a joke or two and you know
Yeah.
good to be around.
I know you have a brother.
I do. I do. I have. I'm the oldest in the family. I actually had two brothers.
Okay.
Had two brothers younger than me, and my youngest sibling was a girl. So my sister
Mm-hmm.
was youngest, and
What's the age range?
there was about there was well, let's see. It's easier to think now. My brother's 5 years younger than me. My
Okay.
surviving brother's 5 years younger,
Yeah.
and my sister's 10 years younger.
Okay. So
That's the
10
easy way to do
years
it. Yeah.
is the range between you and
Yeah.
the youngest.
Mhm.
Okay. What was the family dynamic like at the house?
Well, it's a little fuzzy about those early days. I mean, I have fond memories of just growing up. I remember the three boys being in the same bedroom, beds right side by side, and getting dad putting us to bed at night,
Yeah.
and wanting us to be quiet and go to sleep. But three boys right beside each other. There's a lot of talk going on and stuff, and he'd come in and tell us, "I don't want to hear another peep out of you,"
Yeah.
and something in me just has to go peep,
Yeah.
and then we hear we know trouble is ahead.
Oh, gee.
But just little things, and
Yeah.
then we sister on the way. We had to move to a different house where we had two, another bedroom, and have some more room, and fond childhood. Enjoy, very. Interested in so many things as a kid, and dad traveled a lot, and work ethic thing
Yeah.
post depression, and really trying to make a better life and all that. I don't know much about it. Never really had a lot of heart to heart stuff with him, so I didn't really feel like I know his heart or that he knew my heart well. But uh, he's just not as engaged with the kids as might be desirable. My mom grew up in a larger family and was very active and engaged in my life as far as the activities I was in, always around and encouraged me to do a bunch of stuff. So I just had a big time in a small town and loved it.
Yeah. That's
hmm
awesome.
hmm
That's really cool. So tell me about school. It's a small town,
hmm
and this is in the 60s at that point.
Right. I think, there are probably two or three elementary schools in town, one high school. My mom was a teacher in the high school, so
Right.
education was always kind of front and center, kind of a big deal. I think, the expectations were high to do well. And
Both your parents are college grads,
yeah,
which wasn't, I mean, at the
yeah,
time.
yeah. So, I enjoyed all that. Uh, Liked school and was active in everything that came. I just like to do everything.
Yeah.
I just think about it. I was living in a town probably about 7,000 for most of the time I was living there, and yet I felt so connected to the bigger world in some sense. I always read a lot, and whether it was magazines that my dad subscribed to, or books, or anything I could learn about, the world. It I didn't seem it didn't seem remote or real isolated. It felt like I was had some awareness of the world, and later, get to see a little bit of it. So it's really cool to.
What magazines did you read?
Well, I remember things like National Geographic, for example. Just like,
Absolutely.
wow, this place exists.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
that's cool. That's neat. What did you like reading? You said you read everything.
Oh, I liked reading. I didn't have any particular favorites, I just, I don't know if you have these memories, but there's a scholastic books, you would order them. When you were a kid, you would get the little order form, you'd check the books you want,
Yep.
you forget about it, and then a few weeks later, here comes this shipment and the boxes, and they open them up, and you just open those books up and smell these new books.
Yeah,
Love that.
that's cool. So you were a good student then.
Yeah, it's a good student, yeah. Yeah.
Did you grow up exclusively in Batesville?
Yes, uh-huh.
So you went
Sure
all the way
did.
through high
All the
school?
way, yeah.
Middle school. What was that like? Any big dramatic changes?
No, nothing catastrophic, just the usual, awkwardness of
Sure.
that, wondering how do you fit in? How do you, where do you size up with everybody else, where's the pecking order there in
Yep.
middle school and everything. But
And where did you fit in?
I think all the way through school is uh, I I sort of it seems like I fit in well everywhere. I mean, I was on with the athletic folks. I was in band. The band crowd. I fit in well with them. I was a scout. I was so many activities. I don't know how it all happened, and I did it all. I did so many things.
You said you were a scout. How high did you get? Did you get your eagle?
No, got life
Nice.
and got some other unique awards that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the scouts don't get. And I went on a world jamboree to Scandinavia,
Oh
which
my goodness.
was great.
That's fantastic.
Hmm.
When was that? Do you remember?
75,
Okay.
1975. Hmm.
So you would have been
15,
15?
15. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, it was between I'd save a little money here and there, and I had an ambition to get my pilot's license. This is what I wanted to do. I was saving money for that, and then this opportunity for the World Jamboree comes along. And of course, that realizing there's more to this world than just my little corner. I thought, oh, let me get out here and see some of this.
Yeah.
And as a 15-year-old, I didn't have a lot of opportunities there. And as son told me, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. So I thought, well, I thought I could take flying lessons anytime, but this comes around once in a lifetime. So, well, as it turns out, I've never gotten around to doing the flying lessons. But oh man, that was big. Norway, Sweden, Finland. I could still almost taste the cheese and the bread
Oh my
over there,
gosh.
and it's just amazing.
Oh.
Hmm.
So what was the most shocking thing to 15-year-old Charles
Oh,
in Norway?
that's easy. And actually, it was Finland. Because you know about Scouts, right?
Yeah.
And so this World Jamboree, you go over there. The first week was in Norway, and that's where the camp was. It's where all thousands of you're camping out with thousands of people, and
Right.
that's kind of cool. The next week, you're kind of on a train or a bus. You're traveling through Sweden and uh, seeing different sites and things. And then the last week, you get placed with a family in Finland, and you get a little cultural experience with a family. And it's roll of the dice. You don't know where
Yeah.
you're going or whatever. Sometimes two people went with a family, and so I went with a family by myself. Skipping ahead, we all came back, and we were kind of on the plane home and stuff, we were sharing stories about, what our family was like, and kids were saying, "Yeah, well, me and this other guy, we were with this family way out in the country on a farm. We never saw any, just like nothing going on out there. It's just a farm and nothing was happening, or say whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I hit the jackpot. Like, I stayed with this family. They had a husband, wife, son, and daughter, and the guy was an eye doctor, had an eyeglass shop and everything. But they lived had a little suburb kind of out in the country, and it was really cool. The house was cool. Every house has a sauna, and it was just all amazing. And then we went to the city, and we went to a shopping center, and then we went to a movie, and it was in a foreign language with
Yeah.
subtitles, in English I'm reading, it's just very deep, rich cultural experience. And then they also had this boat. I call it a boat, but it was a yacht or
Oh,
something.
wow.
Sleep had several beds on it, and out in the Baltic Sea. So we go out in the Baltic Sea. We go on this 2-day overnight deal, and I just couldn't believe it. We're going around, and I got to water ski in the Baltic Sea,
Oh my gosh.
and then we go out, and there's this island. There's all these islands. And the way they told me, they said, we're just, I don't remember the mileage, but it was not far from Russian water where we were. And but anyway, we go to this island, and they have a friend. There's some friends that have a house on this island, so we come up and we dock. And all the adults get off and they go up to the house on the island, and the kids are out playing around, and we're swimming. And it's really frigid, cold water, but there is a sauna right at the water's edge. So you go and you get in the sauna until you're about to melt. You can
Yeah.
barely breathe, sweat's pouring out like crazy. And then you think about, I gotta get some relief. So you go out and you jump in the water, and then immediately you're like, your teeth are chattering, you can't get your breath,
Yeah.
and you're swimming like crazy to try to stay warm. It's great.
That's awesome.
And then you go and get back in the sauna, and you're back and forth and back and forth. And so after all that was done, I get back on the boat, and I take a shower, and I get some clean clothes on, and everything, and we're going to have dinner. Well, just as I'm coming out of the boat, up on the top of the boat, I see the adults coming down, from the house, and they come down to the water's edge, and they're going to go for a swim, and they kind of have their bathrobes on and everything, and so they come down to the water's edge, and they take their bathrobes off, and this 15-year-old boy saw how they did things in Finland. They forgot their bathing suits. I'm like, what the heck? Where am I?
You did luck out.
So that was different. Yeah.
That's fantastic, man.
We had a big, I think it was a crawfish banquet thing, and they just
Wow.
told stories and laughed, and it was a fun time. Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay, this is gonna. I don't want to date you. I mean, you told me how old you are. So, do you remember the moon landing?
Oh, every bit of it.
Yes.
Every bit of it. I was glued to the TV, and I watched many moon landings after that, but I saw that fuzzy picture and heard those words when that first step was taken, and it still kind of makes hair stand up on my arm. It was awesome. I remember we. I remember as a kid, I don't know where we were, but there was a trailer that was traveling around the country with one of the space capsules, that had returned, and some other memorabilia and spacesuits and stuff. And I remember, it's one of those trailers, so you could walk in the front and you just walk down, and then you go out the back. Well, our family paraded in, and they go in and they go out, and I'm just stuck in there, soaking it all in. I just can't get enough. And I had to wait in line, to get over to that capsule. And I think, maybe I was getting hurried along or something and my family was gone, so I ran out and stopped my mom or something. I think they were all in the car ready to go, and I was like, yeah, I think probably even teared up. I was like, and well, what's wrong? I said, well, I had to rush through there, and I wanted to touch the capsule. So they waited on me while I go back in there and touched the capsule that had
That's
come back down into Earth.
awesome.
Yeah, it was great, and uh, uh, having been down to Huntsville several times, uh, Cape Canaveral, and going through the Kennedy Space Center,
Yeah.
and short stint where I lived down there to see uh, shuttle launches and shuttle returns and stuff. And I love that stuff.
That's cool. Is that
So
why you wanted to be a pilot?
no, I just think that was something that maybe to try to distinguish myself. Nobody else had done that.
Mm,
None of my other friends had done that.
right.
I knew from reading that not many 15-year-olds had their pilot's license. So you know, so I just wanted to had some ambition, wanted to see what I could reach out for and grab.
Sure. Okay. So we've touched into high school. Do you have any extraordinary high school rebellion or anything like that that you went through?
Well, if we're gonna, if we're kind of up to high school years, which uh, memory serves me a little bit better for those things. Everything else is just kind of a little less clear. But in high school, uh, so when I was 15, this is before the Scandinavian trip. My brothers, interestingly enough, both had some leg fractures. One we'd been on a little ski trip and he had broken his leg, and then my other youngest brother had a go-kart wreck and broke his leg pretty significantly. And they'd gone over to Memphis and get their orthopedic care, their cast and everything. My youngest brother was so bad that he was in a body cast. This thing that went from
Oh
his
my
leg
gosh.
all the way up his torso, right up under his armpits. And so that was you get an itch in one of those things, it's bad. So he was glad to when the day came to get that off. So uh, he and my brother both had appointments at the doctor's office in Memphis. It's about I don't know two couple hours, 2.5 hours from our hometown, and it was kind of bad weather that day. And there was a guy in town that was going to be going to Memphis as well to pick his mother up and bring her back. And he had quite a large car there, and everybody could fit in. He offered to take everybody up there, so
Sure.
they went. I guess it seemed like it had. I kind of remember maybe it snowed that day or something, and they were driving back. It seemed like it snowed. I don't know if it snowed or not, but they were driving back, and about an hour away from home, there was a drunk driver traveling the opposite direction, and came around this S curve in the highway there, and they could see him weaving back and forth. Lo and behold, he crossed the middle line and hit them head on.
Oh.
And so the only survivors in the car were the guy that was driving and my youngest brother that was in the back seat, and
Mm.
my mom and the brother next to me, and the driver's mom and the drunk driver were all killed in this wreck. So that of course, was a game changer for our whole family dynamic. My brother survived, but he had another fracture of the same leg, only this time it was worse
Mm.
than the first time. So he had just gotten his cast off, his body cast off that day, and then was transported back to the hospital, more
Ugh.
surgeries, and another body cast.
And then a couple of funerals.
Yeah, yeah. And So, um, yeah, um, it's interesting that as I've reflected back on death and stuff, my mom had prepared me for experiences just like this. When her father died, when my grandfather died, um, we went, for the funeral, and they had a home out in the country, in Virginia, a farmhouse, and they had the casket and everything was in the home, in the living room,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and people would come to the house, and do all that before the burial. And so I remember we there was a time for the family, to go in, just the family. And my mom took me and went in and just kind of walked me through that. And, being able to put my hands on my grandfather's hands, she did that and then let me do that just to kind of demystify that a little bit
Yeah.
and comfort me and walk me through that. And little did I know that, some few years later, I would get to walk through that experience again.
Mm.
But it was, my dad and I had never been very close. It was just sort of a disconnect and a distance. And so with my mom gone, kind of that buffer there and the nurturer, and I was 15 and
Yeah.
trying to, think about thinking about being a man or becoming a man or what is that all about, and looking for some independence and distance. It didn't go well at home. My dad and I locked horns all the time, and that was the rebellious stuff. Not feeling uh, like this guy knew me. I didn't know him at that age. I didn't really want to know him. Didn't see much
Yeah.
value in that. It was just no, 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 and I didn't have much time for that. And so, I wanted to, never dressed to please him. The hair never pleased him.
Right.
Nothing was ever okay.
Yeah.
And just felt like he didn't know me. So I hung around the people who I felt did know me. And it was, so yeah, in a band, and so we
You were in a band?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
well, yeah, it was not many people know about it. There's not really much to know about it. So, my buddy, one of my best friends in high school, was a very good entertainer, a guitar player, and singer, and I would go hang out with him all the time. His dad had a bass, and I would just pick that up and pluck at it. I couldn't really play, but I would play around with it.
Uh,
And so our senior year, we were having a talent show, and they said, "Hey, you guys need to come play." And so we started working up some songs for the talent show. And then, one of our friends was a drummer, so he comes along, and then he brings along one of his friends that plays lead guitar. Yeah, you
nice.
see, you
Yeah.
see where this is
Yep.
going.
Yep.
So then, my friend and I, as a side note, when we were juniors in high school, we had this really great idea to buy a car together, and
It's a gr- it's a it's a great
I'll
idea.
tell your kids about it. I'll give him a no. So what we wanted to do was graduate high school and then travel, spend a year before college traveling around the country and working some odd jobs to get gas money to go to the next place and see the country and then go
Yeah.
to college.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of car you would choose for such an adventure. We chose a Triumph Spitfire two-seater convertible, a brand new one.
No.
We scraped up some money. His dad co-signed. We went to Dallas, Texas
Oh my
in the
gosh.
winter of 1977, I believe, bought this car and drove it home. And of course, we just bought a convertible, so we take the top down.
Yeah.
By the time we hit the Arkansas state line, the interstate was covered with snow. And we had these face masks, and
Yeah. You're all bundled
we were a
up.
bundle. It took 10 minutes just to get in the car because our coats and jackets and blankets and tucking them in and everything, getting on the road, and we're driving down, and people, top down, because it was awesome. And so that's what we're going to do. But by the time senior year rolled around, this band thing had gone to our heads, and now we're gonna be rock and roll stars.
Sure.
So and by the way, the talent show we knocked it out of the park.
Good.
And Black Rose was the name of the band, and we'd spray painted all these plastic roses black, and we were throwing those out from the stage. The crowd went wild.
Oh my God.
And so then, we're going to do it. Well, my friends, my three bandmates did not have ambition to go to college that year. We were going to do the band, and their families were very supportive of these ambitions, and they got to stay home during the day, and we practiced at night. And at my house, it was a little different story. My dad said, yeah, well, about this band thing, you've got a choice here. You can live here and go to college, or you can do your band thing and not live here. And so, so I didn't see resources to live outside the house, but I'm resourceful,
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, well, I see how to do this. So what I will do, I'll go to the little liberal arts college that's right there in town, and I'll do that during the day while my friends are whatever they're doing, and then we'll practice at night, and I'll live at home. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And so some time passed, and then lo and behold, I sort of find out in a very indirect way that the band has a different bass player.
What?
Yeah. And I inquired about that, and I seem to remember some explanation about, well, we just sense there's not much commitment to the band because you are in college, and we just sense that there's not much commitment. And I really have to give it to those guys because they were doing their best to let me down easy because, the truth is I wasn't a good bass player. That's the brutal truth of it. But they weren't that direct about things, but they were great guys. And actually it came around full circle. That band broke up after a while, and a couple of the guys went off, and they really had some potential. And while they went off and did their thing, I thought, well, there was a little recording studio in town. And so I went and knocked on their door, They answered the door, and I said, hey, I'd like to have a job here. And they were like, well, we don't have any jobs here,
Yeah.
for you. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I would just like to learn about this, and you don't have to pay me. And if you need me to sweep floors or whatever you need to do, I'll do anything. If you'll just let me sit and soak this up and learn. And so they were gracious enough, and the engineer took me under his wing, and different groups would come in and record, and I'd go to school during the day, and then I'd go record at night, And I loved it, And so as it turns out, then my buddies had been practicing and rehearsing and stuff for months, and they were about to go on the road. And they needed a sound engineer because they had some bands had come together, and they had a good bit of equipment and stuff. They had they had a big truck to haul everything.
Sure.
They had big sound system, lights, everything. And they knew that I was dabbling in this, and would I be the sound guy? I said, yeah. I wanted to go on the road.
Right.
So I dropped out of college and went on. Made my dad proud.
Didn't think that was going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. So dropped out after my first year and did the band thing for a little more than a year. We traveled around working 5 to 7 days a week, and after a year or so of that, I remember one experience where it really kind of dawned on me that how hard it is to really make a success as we dream about with that sort of stuff. We got to play in Memphis before this band called 38 Special. You may know
Yeah.
something about them.
Yeah.
And so they were really breaking some of their hits at the time. And so I remember, being backstage and all, and I seeing these guys, just sort of, putting on their pants one leg at a time too, so to speak.
Sure.
I was hearing their conversations, hearing their talk about, their problems and stuff. And I'm like, wait a second. I peek behind the curtain here and see how this is really working. They're like, it wasn't all magic, It's like they were just people, and
Yeah.
the facade just began to break away. And I thought, wait a second, what am I doing? So I kind of bowed out of that, even though I, you know, I was good at that, but I enjoyed that. I'm glad I
That's
did it.
awesome.
I stepped out and went another direction. So
Let me take you back for 1 second. When your mom and your brother passed,
hmm.
did your dad continue to travel a lot?
you know, he did travel. He did scale back, and to his credit, he got help in the home to kind of be there for us. He still had to work, and I think he just, from my perspective, he did the best he could with what he had. I mean, there's
Sure.
been a lot of healing there. I came back a few years later really wanting to know my dad, wanting relationship with him, pursued him, even when he was not even wanting it. And I remember coming home, and we probably hadn't talked in months and months and months. And I call him and said, Dad, I'm coming home and I'm going to talk to you, and not going to take no for an answer. And we talked for several hours, and it was good. And it began a journey of pursuing, and I think as he aged, as folks tend to do, he softened a bit, and it got good.
Yeah.
It didn't get great, but I think it got as good as it could, and I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for that. Yeah.
How did you make the jump to medical school?
It wasn't really a jump. It was more of a just maybe crawling.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't grow up wanting to be a doctor, or anything like that. I just, after the band thing, after I went back to college, and I have any direction, I just knew I had to take some basic courses, so I just knocked those out.
Hmm.
Had a friend that was doing pre-med, and we were buddies, and I had to take the basic science courses. I remember I took this basic science course and I did well in it. I liked it. So then the next summer, I thought, yeah, maybe I need to think about this. Not knowing how to go about it, I thought, well, if I'm thinking about being a doctor, maybe I need to go to a hospital where I guess doctors are and check that out and see what that's like. So I went to my hometown and got a job as I don't know what they call it, an orderly or something, just
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
the lowest one,
Yeah.
that's the crawling part, I guess. I worked there at the hospital that summer, so there was one particular nurse that kind of took me under her wing and would take me around and teach me things, show me how things go. And I saw a lot of the different players, the people that transport patients back, the nurses, the technicians, the lab, the x-ray, the doctors, the surgeons, the secretaries. There's a
Sure.
team of folks here that work together to make this happen. And the nurse kind of sort of like my mom did. There was a patient that died in the hospital. This stuff happens.
Yeah.
You can't turn your back and run away. She took me in the room, where this dead person was, to sort of demystify this. You have to address these things, and she, in the sweetest way, kind of helped me through that and make where I'm not, there's no fear or anything, just made it as comfortable as can that this is what we do.
Yeah.
It made an impression on me. I remember just going up and down the halls of the hospital, and the rubbing alcohol and all the other smells there, and I was like, yeah, this is where I belong. This is good. And so then, kind of began to pursue that course and take the required classes and this and that and the other, and apply to med school. But man, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's tough.
How so it's 4 year undergrad and then 3 years of medical school?
4.
4 years of medical
Hmm.
school. And then the
Residency.
residency.
That's varies depending on what your specialty is. Mine, uh, the circuitous route that I took, the crawl that I went there, was one of the, a little bit of an older student there by the time I got to med school. And though I liked school, it didn't pay very well to go to school.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
needed to get out. I was ready to get out and do something. So I didn't want to continue there forever. And plus, I my interests are so wide and varied that I just thought, and I remembered my family doctor. I just thought this is a real doctor. I mean, he did everything. He did, back then he'd do some surgeries. He delivered babies. He, took care of you when you were sick. He kept you healthy when you were healthy. His son was one of my best friends. He would throw us in his Land Rover and go down the dirt roads bumping our heads against the ceiling. I knew
Wow.
him. He came to our house to check on us when we were sick. And I just thought, I'm fascinated by all the specialties, but that was a doctor to me. And so I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be a generalist, so to speak. I wanted to be a family physician, and I'm glad I did. I like it, but yeah, that's the route I took.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to medical school?
Went to medical school in Little Rock, the
Okay.
University of Arkansas.
Yep.
Medical schools in Little Rock, and but then after that, after school, I went to did my residency in Florida in Daytona Beach.
Oh, okay.
That was the Cape Canaveral
Yeah.
Kennedy Space Center just down the road. I loved residency. I love living in Florida and being outside all the time, and that was a great time.
So that's early 80s by that point, correct?
That is mid. Actually, by then, yeah, it was probably in the 90s by then, by the time I finished residency.
Okay.
Yeah, so I finished residency. I took a job in Little Rock with some docs I knew there that were great guys, good examples to me, and I felt like good mentors, and they had a good business. And I just wanted to be around them.
Yeah.
I took my fellow residents. A lot of them took jobs, paid a ton more money
Yeah.
in different situations, and I took less because I wanted to go work with these guys. I missed a few bucks there, but I learned a lot from them. They taught me a lot. After 5 years or almost 5 years of working with that, though, that was their business. It wasn't my
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
and I didn't really see a future there for me. I wasn't going to be a part of that business, and I felt a little demoralized by that because I wanted to work really hard and be part of that, have some
Sure.
skin in the game there. I just
Yeah.
didn't see. Uh, I turned in my resignation, and they said they were kind of worried for me. Like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't exactly know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to stay in this situation,
Yeah.
and it was they were very caring and supportive, and I found out a friend of mine that lived in Nashville area knew about a job opening and knew of someone that was hiring and moved to Franklin, Tennessee. It was the largest primary care group in Nashville. They had 3 offices in Nashville, one down there in Franklin. Got my first taste of the corporate sort of world,
Yeah.
and did not know that I had stepped onto the Titanic after it had hit the iceberg.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming. And that ship sank a year to the month after I came on board. They
Man.
closed the doors very abruptly, and 15, 16 doctors just scattered. I was on the street. I had no job and just moved my family here and talked to a few folks about maybe collaborating, doing something. And, by that time, I kind of had a vision for what I wanted, and I just didn't feel like anybody else was like minded. And I didn't want to be in that situation where we're pulling against each other and
Yeah.
trying to do different things. So I just mustered up all the little bit of knowledge that I had from those guys in Arkansas about the business side of things, and uh, hung out my shingle and went to work on my own as a solo doctor. And there weren't a whole bunch back then, and there's even fewer solo
Yeah.
family practice
Yeah.
doctors now. But my wife and I, we sort of made an agreement that we're going to give this 5 years. And 5 years rolled around, and I realized this is not going to survive. I got to do something else.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
You just mentioned your wife and you mentioned your family, and we don't know anything about them.
Hmm.
How did that happen?
Yeah, we're going to step back a bit. Actually, when I was in medical school, I met this girl that was in nursing school. This girl who said that she was always kidded by her friends that she's just going to nursing school so she marry a doctor. And it made her mad. She didn't, I'm not, that's not what I'm doing. As it turns out, we crossed paths and got to hanging out together, and I was just kind of captivated by her, and really attracted to her. And so I think we dated a couple years and got engaged, got married. Uh, you know, uh, and she finished nursing school and started working. I finally finished up, and we went on to residency. And we're in Florida. My first son was born there in Florida. Then we moved back to Arkansas, where I took that job,
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter was born in Little Rock, and then my second son was born there, and then we moved to Franklin, and my fourth son was born in Franklin.
When you were in Little Rock and you had two or three kids at that point.
I may have said my fourth son is my fourth child, a third son.
Right, I knew what you meant.
Okay.
Yeah. You had three kids in Little Rock, and you said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm not staying in this situation. Was your wife on board with that? What was that conversation like?
Yeah, she was on board with that. I mean, I think she had a certain trust in me. She knew I would work hard, and she knew that I was not content in that situation, and
Yeah,
that's not a good place to be. And she was supportive of that, which was really cool. It's one of the scariest times in my life, but it was honestly, it's one of the best times in my life. I just, it was exciting and thrilling, and what's going to come next, and it's just
sure.
like right on the edge.
Yeah,
And we could fall off,
yeah,
but it was exciting. And the second time like that was when I came here and the business uh, shut down, and I was without work for a few months,
right.
and equally scary and starting my own business.
Did she work through all of that, or was.
No, actually, she didn't. After our first child was born, she stayed home and was a full-time stay-at-home mom, which she enjoyed, and I was excited about that too. And so, yes, all through our kids' childhood, she was stay-at-home mom.
That's good.
Yeah, where we left off there,
Yeah,
I at 5 years, I just realized with the business side of medicine being what it was, the only way you could stay alive was to uh, uh, see more and more patients.
right.
And I just knew I couldn't pedal that fast. I couldn't. I didn't want to work at that. It's not about not wanting to work hard. It's that was not good work. It was just
Right.
not good work. It's
Yeah.
doing not good stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to cut corners, and I didn't want to compromise, and I didn't want to give poor care, and I wanted to I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be the fullest of my capacity.
Right.
Couldn't do it, and so I actually thought I'm going to quit the clinical practice of medicine. I'm not going to do this because trying to make a living at this was stupid.
Yeah.
The things that are required of doctors, the way that now they spend more than 50% of their time on computers and papers and very little time with patients and stuff, and nobody likes it, you know,
Right.
patients or doctors. I'm not going to do this. And I thought, I've got my degree, I got my license. I'll do something with it. You know, I don't know what I'll do with it, but
Sure.
I do clinical medicine. But I thought, this is all I know to do. And before I quit, I got to find out if there's a different way to do the business part of it. And I remembered when I was a resident reading about these two doctors in Washington State who set up a practice for a very limited number of patients who paid an extraordinary amount of money to be a member of their practice, and the doctors didn't participate with insurance. I thought, there's something out of the box here, and I dug around. I found that article. I'd kept that article.
Huh.
I found it. And then I went, if there's anybody else doing this. And I started looking into it. I found out that there were about 400 doctors in the country
Huh.
who had parted ways with insurance, and patients were just paying them directly for their care. They still had insurance for all the expensive things that you need if you have to have surgery or an MRI
Yeah, if your
or
leg falls off.
yeah, their insurance covers that. But just to go have some time to talk to your doctor, you know, or your patient, these doctors were doing that. So I tracked some of them down, and they had a little organization, and I would go meet with them, and now I get around these docs, and they're happy. They like their jobs. They like their patients. Their
Yeah.
patients like them. They gave their patients their cell phone number. All the
Yeah.
other doctors, their office staff doesn't know their cell phone number. You page them,
Yeah.
and then they kind of get. But these doctors, their patients would call them right up or text them. I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. But nobody in Tennessee was doing this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5-year plan to, make it or break it came and went. And, talking with my wife again, I said, I need a little more time here. We're going to do something different, but I got to create a new practice model.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 years to research and build this, all the while practicing my practice. And then at night, weekends, building this up. And then 2 years later, I canceled all my relationship with all the insurance companies, ended at December 31st on one night, and started a new practice, a direct practice, no insurance, the next day, January 1st, 2007,
Yep.
with two families that said they would come with me on this. And I lost my entire practice, 3,000 patients overnight.
Wow.
And that was the third major push in my career
Yeah.
that was scary, thrilling, and like, let's do this. And if we make it, that will be great. And if we fail, we went down trying with everything we had.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it wouldn't have been any worse than if I'd quit clinical practice and not taking care of patient one,
Yeah.
Now I have a much smaller practice, but at least I'm taking care of folks, taking good care of folks. Like one old adage from some doc that came along before me said, if you listen to somebody long enough, they'll tell you what's wrong with them.
Mm.
But we have no time to listen. And so I thought, what would the ideal practice in my mind be? And it would be like, take down all the barriers that come between a patient and their doctor. Insurance, first thing to go.
Yep.
And had this small practice, and patients call me, they text me, they email me. I meet them in my office, I meet them in their home, I meet them at the coffee shop. But I'm listening to stories all the time. I know their story, I know it well. They
Yeah.
get to know my story. And I think that time is the best tool I have, more than my stethoscope or EKGs or any CT scan or anything else. It's the time to listen well and hear these stories. And I love the stories and I love the people, and
Yeah.
it makes it a rich experience despite all the business stuff. And that's why it's been sustainable and doable, but it's really cool. So yeah.
With the major changes that happened in your practice
Hmm.
and the challenges there of bucking the system and doing something your own way, did it affect your marriage?
Yeah, it affected everything.
Yeah.
It affected me. It affected my marriage. But it was a thing. It's
Yeah.
not the thing or the whole thing. I think we both know a pastor who says, who has made the statement often that marriage is set up. And I believe that, you know. You take two people from different families of origin
Mm-hmm.
and different personalities and makeup and everything else, and you put them in the context of that close relationship called marriage, and then you add some kids,
Yeah.
you add some in-laws and backstory of your family of origin, and you turn up the heat with a little financial pressure,
Yeah.
and see what happens, you know.
Yeah.
And I would say, in the heat of things when everything was cranking really hard, whether it was the business that wasn't sustainable and I was working as hard as I could to keep all the plates spinning, or whether it was starting a new business that my wife was very supportive of, very passionate about, she was just my greatest ally, you know, right with me. We were gonna do it and work hard and make it all happen. Wonderful kids and family and everything was just rocking, but it came at a price, you know. And I was doing the best I could, but it wasn't good enough, and I just didn't have what it took, you know. I didn't know what I didn't know. Couldn't really appreciate how it was affecting things, you know. So by the time my two oldest kids were, you know, upper level of high school, the pressure cooker was just about to burst, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Really tense and around the house, and I was really tense and didn't have a lot of patience, and didn't know really how to handle conflict very well. Didn't know how to resolve it in a healthy way. Like a lot of folks, you know, I had developed survival skills, you know,
Sure.
and they worked for a while. They kind of got me through, but it was not very healthy, and it sort of left a path of destruction. And my oldest son, you know, is a wonderful guy, but he is a very independent guy, very strong willed. And when he began to spread his wings and uh, seek independence, you know, we locked horns. You know, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where, you know, you grow up and you're like, I'm never going to be that way. You know,
Yep.
your dad,
Yep.
stuff. And then, you know, then you end up, you know, just like that, you know, you're this same dynamics happening,
Yeah.
you know. And I didn't manage it well. I had my self defense was sort of anger. It was, you know, that's what came out was an anger response that sort of controlled things a bit by everybody running and hiding. You know, it's like no one wants to be around somebody like that. You know,
Yeah.
but that did sort of kind of get by for a little bit. But you know, after a while of that, there's only so much, that you can take. So we went to counseling, started going to counseling. Finally, I think my wife would have loved to have gone sooner, but, I was busy and what time
Yeah.
and money for all this sort of stuff. And then we finally went to kind of help, how can we resolve conflict, with our kids' dynamic and stuff like that. And, first visit with a wise counselor, he's sitting there, and at the first visit, it was very apparent that the issues that I thought needed working on were not about my kids. A lot of it was about me. Some of it was about my wife and I, how we communicate and resolve conflict and stuff. But all that aside, there was my stuff, too. So we counseled for, gosh, I don't know, it seemed like it was, a couple of years, it seems like. But I kind of look back on that and think it was too little too late. It changed my life.
Yeah.
That in the, just the, coming to the end of myself, not being able to uh, hold this together, and then the benefit of some counseling, it changed me
Yeah.
for the better.
Yeah.
It didn't save my marriage. And so ultimately, my marriage didn't survive. When I got married, it was like, I'm one and done. This
Yeah.
is all I want. I'll never, divorce is not part of my vocabulary. I will do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And had a lot of feelings around that,
Yeah. Yeah.
culturally and judgments about others and stuff. But when I walked through that, it broke me. It was such a humbling experience. And even though there had been at least a couple of events and things in my life that had brought some awareness about my issue of anger response, rageful sort of things, that was not physical, but it's everything else. It's scary. It's hurtful.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It didn't change anything. I tried to change, tried to clean that up, but deep down it didn't change
Do
till.
Do you remember what that feels like
Oh
to be in
yeah,
that
oh
that
yeah,
moment of rage?
oh yeah. I do. I don't feel that very much. I'm very thankful for that. I don't. I rarely feel that level. I felt it. I can remember that since a teenager,
Yeah.
and just a lot of angst and stuff. Just having those rageful sort of anger outbursts. But I remember my counselor saying that he was a rageaholic himself
Hmm.
and that he had had to do a lot of work in that area. And that soothed me. Hear another man older than me confess that and say that. And I felt I could say that too.
Yeah.
I saw him humble himself. I saw him as a survivor and somebody that was recovering from that and somebody that was doing well. I could do that too.
Yeah.
And I worked really, really hard at it. And he doesn't say I was a rageaholic. He said I am.
Right.
And he has that again, not as much. And I'm experiencing that. I find myself in that group of people who have been divorced. And I'm learning to live with
I was gonna
that.
say, how'd that change your perspective?
Well, it changed it completely.
You.
Dude, listen, man, I was so humbled by all that. I've had opportunities to pursue my kids that, had to distance themselves from me and all
Mm,
that stuff. And I've had opportunity to patiently, without a lot of expectations, just pursue and ultimately see their response. And I'm just overjoyed that we're rebuilding a relationship and communicating and I have a lot of hope for that. I'm so excited. But yeah, it's a game changer. The judgment goes out the door. Like I got nothing. It's
yeah.
like I got enough on my plate here to take care of. I can't worry so much about your stuff.
Yeah.
We all have our stuff, and I got a lot more grace for that. I sure
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Your dad just passed recently too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. About 5 months ago. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So he'd been ill, some chronic condition for a while, kind of his health deteriorating. So
And he still lived in Arkansas, right?
he did. But, being very intentional, seeing him decline, we visited, visited him when I could and just kind of made the most of that relationship that we could. So we had time to say what needed to be said and do what needed to be done. And it was really sweet. I mean, his emotional bandwidth seemed pretty narrow to me. And he never really gave me what I dreamed of and desired,
Mm,
but he gave me what he could. And
yeah.
I know that. And I appreciate that, and I gave him what I could, and it was good. And so when he died, I always wondered, like, how's this going to impact me? What's going to happen? And I didn't know. Went down for the funeral and everything, and went through all that, and uh, I remember reflecting about some of the things my dad had said. There was a lot of things that he spoke about that he wanted to do that he never got around to doing.
Yeah.
I know a lot of those things meant something to him, and it was so sad to see him and he couldn't do them. I just remember thinking, wow, I don't want to have any regrets
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
things that I wanted to do, and I just didn't do it, and then I can't do them.
Right.
Well, for about a year before, this good friend of mine that's my adventure buddy that goes out and we do all kind of ride bikes, mountain bikes, adventure races, all kind of stuff together, hiking, backpacking. He and some other folks have been planning a backpacking trip in California, a 3 week backpacking trip. And they asked me to go like a year ago. And I was like, are you kidding me? These guys had just retired from their careers. You know, all they do is sit around planning these trips, and I'm like, I got this job thing. It's not like I
Yeah.
got a replacement.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe I can come out for a few days and join you. And okay, but after my dad's death, it just dawned on me, I cannot uh, have these regrets. And so I came back. I
Right.
called my friend up and said, listen, uh, I want to go, not for a few days. I want to go with you for 3 weeks. I'll buy the plane ticket and I'll commit. And I shuddered. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I'll lose my patience. I'll lose my practice. The world may come to an
That's
end.
right.
I've never been away from work like this as long. What's going to happen? And just took a chance. I went backpacking. We started at Yosemite
Mm-hmm.
and hiked south and ended the through trip on the summit of Mount Whitney at, at daybreak, at
Oh my
sunrise
gosh.
on top of Mount Whitney, and came back with no regrets to find out that I did not lose a single patient. My
Oh.
business survived. And lo and behold, somehow the world kept spinning without
Without
me.
you.
So that's, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
That was a good thing.
Well, that feeds into the three questions I like to ask.
We can't end it here.
No?
Okay.
Do you have canned answers? Do you know what you're gonna say?
I've sweated bullets about this. I didn't know.
Well, relax. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
easy. What are you afraid of?
Having heard a podcast or two, Tyler, the thing I fear the most is your last question.
No, come on.
And it's about the truth. I don't know. Um, you know, it probably does have something to do with your last question because I think what I fear the most is sort of the unknown about all the things that I thought I had an answer to
Mm.
when I was rocking it in the evangelical Western church experience that I sort of grew up in from about age 20 on, when I really began to grow my faith in that experience and learning, and embraced and loved and cherished, and felt deeply and passionate about, and felt like that was giving me life and direction and purpose and meaning and significance. I had a wonderful family. We were rocking it. We were rocking it in the church. We were in leadership positions.
Mm.
We looked good, had it together, and I loved it. And until it wasn't good anymore, and then experiences in church and in relationships and in marriage and all that stuff unraveled, leaving me with many more questions
Mm.
than I had answers for. So it's very unsettling. And so that rattles me at times, because in those circles that, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, you're either on board with the general consensus of this group, or you're kind of on the fringe and maybe not as welcome. And so a lot of stuff changed.
Yeah.
And that all happened, kind of around the context of, several years of marriage discord and divorce and stuff. And so many things changed that, yeah, left me with a lot of questions. And
And those scare you.
yeah, they scare me because I don't have the answer. I was very confident and assured of things before, and now I don't know.
Mm.
And I'm at peace about life in general, but I can't give answer that would be satisfying for a lot of the folks that,
Yeah.
I used to be in relationship with. I don't know. And I hold those things loosely now. And I think now I'm much more comfortable in the mystery
Mm.
of things like faith and spirituality and stuff like that. I think in our culture, we like, especially, in the age of rational thought and stuff, we want to have an answer and the
Right.
scientific method and all this. So we want to
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of wired that way. I want to know, and
Yeah.
so it's a kind of paradigm shift to be able to go, yeah, I think those old mystics of ages past were okay not having everything figured out, and I think there's some beauty in that, and that's not a bad thing. It's just you have to be okay with that, and I'm getting okay with that.
Well, I know you're not going to regret anything now from here on out, but what do you regret?
Um, well, we touched on you sort of touched on this earlier. You're talking about scouts, and you asked me the question that anyone would ask: how high of rank did you achieve? And I think one of the most significant things I regret is not getting my Eagle
Really?
Award. I was close. A couple of merit badges and a service project, and I would have been an Eagle. I was almost there. But, by the time you're 15 and there's girls and cars and bands and all kind of stuff, so many interests, and it got to be less of a cool thing, and it just, and I was doing a lot of stuff, and I was working, and there was less time. Uh, just couldn't push past that and get it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I regret not getting it, but I've never forgotten that. That lesson has gotten me to the finish line for many, many things, including medical school
Yeah.
and residency.
Yeah.
I've thought about it in certain athletic endeavors, That's been very profound for me, is to go the distance. If you're on the verge of victory, and to push on, if it's worth fighting for, fight well, get there, just do it. And so, yeah, it's not all bad.
No, you learned something from it.
Yeah, sure did.
That's good. I got to ask it.
Bring it.
Who is God?
Well, I do not have a rehearsed answer for you. I do not have a pat answer.
Yeah.
I do not have a definition. I think the most honest answer I could give you is I don't know.
Yeah.
I believe in God. I have trust in God. Uh, it is okay with me not to try to define a supreme being that uh, makes this all happen. And I'm okay with that. I will just have to trust in my uh, and what I don't know, and it's all I got right now.
That's got to be tough for a doctor.
I'm learning a lot, man.
Trusting in what you don't know.
Yeah, I. It's pretty pervasive in my life. I think even in medicine, I think as I have grown and matured as a physician, I mean, it's a real cool place now to look back on after, probably, you know, close to 30 years doing stuff like this. Looking back as very idealistic physician, going to cure the world,
Mm-hmm.
to realizing that for as far as medicine has come, and of course it has, we come up short.
Yeah.
They say, sometimes you can heal, often you can help, always you can love and show compassion.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Doc, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me. It's always a good time to hang with you.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Well, we don't have to stop. We're just going to turn off the recording now.
Okay. Okay.
If you couldn't tell from that interview, let me just make it abundantly clear. Dr. Charles Marable is one of the most kind, compassionate, and loving people you will ever hope to meet. And you could do a lot worse than him as your doctor. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area and you need a doctor, look him up. If you would like to see the portrait I made of Doc Marable, not the first portrait I've ever made of him, but definitely the most recent, you can swing by our website. It is www.butenouughabout.me. Or you can go to our social media sites, those being Instagram and Facebook, both of them /ButEnoughAboutMe podcast. If you'd like more information about the podcast, if you want to give us some feedback because you like it or you hate it, drop me a line in any of those places, or you can shoot me an email, tyler@butenoughAbout.me. Additionally, there's a way to contact me straight from our website. Again, www.butenoughAbout.me. Also on that website, in addition to the portraits of Doc and all of the other guests and links to all of the other places you can listen to the podcast or just listen to it directly from the website, in addition to all that stuff, there are also details about Mr. Casey Jones. Casey does all of our graphic design and is also a pretty great human himself. You should go check out his website at iamcaseyjones.com, or you can get there from the link on our site. And also, you will find out about Mr. Jace Hackman. Jace does all of the bumper music for the show, and I am honored to have him around. You can find his website at jacehackman.com, or again, just go to our website. We got a link down toward the bottom. If you think that this is the best podcast you have ever heard, you probably need to listen to more podcasts. But other than that, I would love for you to help spread the word. Seriously, that's the only way that this gets out there. Guys, we are already over 3,000 downloads, and we've been doing this just a hair over 6 months. I'm honestly blown away and flattered. You guys are incredible. If you would like to advertise the fact that you like this podcast, I have wonderful vinyl stickers. They are 4 inches by 4 inches, so it's a perfect square. And coincidentally, it's our logo. It's bright yellow, and it looks awesome, and you've got half of my dumb face on it. So get it and stick it on your bumper and then splash it with mud, and that's what my face deserves. But the logo is really fun because Casey made it, and you should have one. If you want one, They're free. You don't have to pay me anything. Just shoot me an email, tyler@butenoughAbout.me, or through one of the social media sites. That would be fine too. Let me know your address, and I will lick a stamp and send it off to you. You can pretend it's a Christmas present. Hey, if you want, you could stuff it in a stocking for someone you love. Maybe it's a subtle hint that they should come on the show and tell us their story. On my flights to and from Pittsburgh this past week, I got an opportunity to test out my own advice that I offer every single week. That's right, I sat next to complete and total strangers with wonderful, excellent noise canceling headphones that I took off and struck up a conversation with the strangers next to me. I heard a couple of excellent stories in my short trips back and forth. It was a lot of fun. And guys, it's worth it. It is worth it. It is worth it. I made 2 new friends, and hopefully they felt acknowledged and recognized. And man, this is so much fun. If you haven't done it, do it, do it, do it. Sometime between now and 2 weeks from now, go find someone. Whether you know them well or not is not relevant. Find someone and ask them to tell you their story. My name is Tyler Andrews, but enough about me.